Some of the most successful products in the world were actually pivots. So they had an initial idea and they moved away from that idea to create the products that we know and love today. A great example of that is Netflix. When Netflix started, it was a DVD by mail service. They saw their opportunity to go into online streaming, and they are the company that's buying Warner Brothers now. As a startup founder, that's also important for you to understand. Pivoting is okay, there's no shame in pivoting, and we actually have a lot of experience with pivoting, so I wanted to share some of that with you. If you're new here, my name is Muso and I'm the product head of Fabrika. We're a product design studio that builds custom software and helps entrepreneurs like you go to market fast. If you're new to tech, or if you're new to the tech lingo, pivoting might sound familiar but not universally defined. Here's how we think about pivoting. Pivoting in our minds is moving away from an initial idea to a more refined idea, whether that's moving because of product feedback, market feedback, investor feedback, wherever the feedback comes from. Pivoting is the art of using that information that you're getting to bring a better product to market. My job at Fabrika is walking through entrepreneurs and founders from their initial idea to a fully built product. And a large part of that, and during the initial stages of our conversations, is helping them understand what their product is and how we're going to bring that to life from a technical perspective. Because of the unique nature of my role and my work talking to thousands of founders a year, I'm very good at helping founders navigate their idea. So helping them work through what their product idea is, how to bring it to market in an economically viable way. And that's a really fancy way of saying I know how to bring good software for very cheap to the market. Part of that ability comes from being able to suss out when it is time to pivot. As a builder and as an agency that builds our own products, we understand the difficulties and we understand the necessity of sometimes pivoting your idea. I have a great story to tell about that actually. Before we tell you about our experience pivoting, I wanted to clarify a couple of things. The first one is usually the tough one to understand, and that's when to pivot. There's different stages where you might pick up that your product or your idea isn't going in the right direction, and sometimes those moments are hard to find. What we found from our experience is really two key points of validation. One that we are able to help with is the technical validation, and the second one is customer feedback. So what does that mean? Let me break it down to you in a way that's a bit easier to understand. Taking your product to market is a journey, and like any journey, it has to start somewhere and it stops somewhere. Hopefully the stop is you making millions of dollars. To get to that point where you're making millions of dollars, you have to get customers to buy your product. So the first step in validation should be talking to your potential customers. And we've talked about this in other videos, so I'm not going to go too much into it. Once you have a validated product idea, then you have to make that product come to life. So you know what customers are willing to buy, you know that they're going to give you millions of dollars if you bring it to market. Going back to our example, you have to now see how to build that. And that is what technical validation is. In our capacity as an agency, we offer that service for free. So you come to us, the first steps of having a conversation with us is us going through your product and developing the documentation and the plan that you need to bring your product to market. That's called a product requirements doc. So we'll develop a products requirement doc that outlines all of the features of your application, all of the technical and non-technical stats that you need built to make your product successful, and define key criteria like user journey, success criteria, and so on. That document's going to help you answer how much, when, and how difficult. And with those three answers, you should really have a good idea of what your product is, how much it's going to cost you to bring it to market, and by when you're going to get to market. So bringing it back to our initial point on pivoting, we see pivoting happen once we've given customers a realistic understanding of the technical complexities of their application. What that means, put more straightforwardly, when the numbers are speaking on the page, that changes the dynamics of your product. We start to look for alternatives, ways to come to market. And that's just the nature of software. So it's those two components, customer feedback and technical feedback, that changes how you go to market with your product and how you build your product. And I think there's no better way than to understand that through an example. As a product studio, we build our own products and we bring products to market, many of which are soon to come, but one that we're happy to talk about is Altovia. Altovia was intended to be an app for points hackers. So these are people who use their credit cards aggressively to acquire points and they want to use these points to buy cheap travel tickets all around the world. There are many websites, there are many great websites that these individuals use online, but there isn't a unified experience that allows them to do that from their phone and do that very well from their phone. So we saw that as an opportunity. That opportunity was the birth of Altovia. However, once we started exploring, we realized that it's a bit different from the opportunity that we initially saw. So first, we defined our own products requirement doc, or a PRD, and we started building off of the PRD. One thing that we didn't realize when defining the PRD was the limitations of our API provider. So what that means in a very simple terms is we didn't actually know how we're going to get the data. We had an initial idea of how we're going to get the data. We thought that a third-party company would give us access to their API, and we assumed that that was an open API that everyone had access to, and it turns out that we were wrong. Once we started building the app, this is a couple of months in, we discovered that the direction that we're going in was unattainable. At that point, we were faced with a choice. The choice was, do we try to make our own data source where we can gather the data ourselves, or do we pivot and change the idea? And the one important thing about pivoting that you have to realize is it has to come down to a business decision. It has to come down to not only what is best for the customers, but also what is economically viable for you as a business to keep running. The point that we reached as part of that was taking a look at our product. So what that looked like when we sat down was looking at, okay, we go down this path of collecting our own data. How much is it going to be? How expensive is it going to be? Can we actually do it technically? And the answers to all of those were not in our favor. So we pivoted. Now Altovia is catered towards travelers who are looking to find cheap flights, as well as an experience that allows us to help our users find things to do when they travel. And our future iterations of our app is also going to include things like connecting different travelers together so that we can build communities online that are interested in traveling. The reality is pivoting isn't for everybody. As entrepreneurs, we're all interested and fixated on the one big shiny problem that we have to solve to a point where we don't actually see the reasons why it can't succeed. So it's important to kind of factor that in your decision-making process. So when you're confronted with that situation of, do I pivot or do I not, you can make the right call that keeps your business afloat. As an agency, we see this a lot of times when we start engagements with our clients and they receive that market validation after we've started building the software. We pride ourselves in being an accelerator to your growth, so we're able to make those type of situations work. But part of that on our end is preparing for it, and the other part of it is by offering our founders flexibility. So that's a really big one that we see whenever we talk to our customers, is make sure you're aligned with a partner that can actually move in the direction that you need them to move and be able to produce the outputs that you need them to produce based on market feedback. And really, with a strong technical partner that's able to solve these problems when they arise, you should be able to pivot your way into success. Software is very difficult. The reality of somebody saying that you can build software in an afternoon in your garage is not very real. And unfortunately, because software is so difficult, the folks that are able to find success in software are the ones that are responsive to feedback from the market, from their partners and stakeholders. We hope to be that for your business, but if you're working with other businesses too, it's important to find the right fit. Hope you found that educational, and if you're looking for more strategies on how to get your product to market faster, please check out our website or book a call. Thank you.